a truck stop, hot going flip-flop, thinking about my baby back home. 100 cups of coffee, truckers all around me, talking on the new iPhone. But I got my own little honeybee. I love her, she loves me. I'm living in a truck stop, hot going flip-flop, thinking about my baby back home. Thinking about my baby back home. I'm living in a truck stop, hot going flip-flop, humming old country songs, staring at the waitress, looking at her tight dress. Boy, you're on the road too long. But I got my own little honeybee. I love her, she loves me. I'm living in a truck stop, hot going flip-flop, thinking about my baby back home. I'm thinking about my baby back home. Well. When I'm driving down the road, she's always on my mind. Well. When I hold her in my arms, I'm so glad she's mine. I'm living in a truck stop, hot going flip-flop, thinking about my baby back home. Thinking about my baby back home. I'm living in a truck stop, listen to the raindrop, didn't sleep all night long. Now I'm hopping on my 10 backer, and then honey, I'm a coming home. 'Cause I got my own little honeybee. I love her, she loves me. I'm living in a truck stop.
All right. Hello.
I'm thinking about my
All right. There we go. Pause the music there. Hey, hello, Facebook and YouTube land. My name is Phil Henry, and I'm having a conversation this morning with folk singer and author and educator and entertainer Rik Palieri. How's it going, Rik?
Hey, Phil. It's great to be here. It's a beautiful day here in Vermont, as you know, and it's great to be celebrating the work that we've been doing for almost a year, or maybe a little bit more than a year now.
Yeah. Well, so this is going out to both people that I interact in the greater world, and then also to people who are in your sphere. So just as a bit of introduction, so I'm Phil Henry. I'm down here in Rutland, Vermont, and I'm a singer-songwriter. But the other thing that I spend time in all my free time is I've done a lot of producing and recording of projects, from folk musicians to hardcore punk rock musicians here in my studio. And Rik is a songwriter and a folk singer of a tradition that goes back to the great Pete Seeger, and has been traveled all over this world making music. And Rik came to me probably about a year and a half ago and said,
I said, Phil, is there any possibility of you bringing some of your equipment to do an unusual recording? And the reason that happened was, and Phil was been involved, in many different kinds of things over the years together. We performed together. We've also, he's been on the Great Vermont Barn Dance Show. And there was a kind of special event that took place where we were raising money for my friend Utah Phillips had this flanger car from the 1800s. And
Tell me what a flanger car is.
A flanger car, it looks like a caboose, but it actually is a kind of has a different operation because it had these kind of outward kind of things on it that helps push the snow off of the tracks.
Okay, cool.
And Utah.
So what was Utah using it for?
He was living in it while he was recording at Philo Records. And it was the party place, There's all kinds of stories about Utah's caboose. And Mary McCaslin used to talk about the times at Utah's caboose. And so when Utah was actually out here for the Champlain Valley Folk Festival, we went out and looked at the caboose. And Utah said, boy, it's really a shame that it's out here and, the weeds were growing over it. And and it said it would be really great if we could do something about it. So that was Utah's idea. And the Rose Tattoo, I was with the Rose Tattoo, and everybody was thinking about it. Well, his son Duncan got involved, and after Utah passed, he started really working on this dream of bringing the caboose over to Weed, California, to a train museum, and setting it up as a bed and breakfast kind of thing for artists, to write songs and be inspired by Utah. So because I was the closest person to where the caboose was, Duncan reached out to me and asked about, if I'd get involved in it. And so I did. And I went out there and I saw the caboose, and I met Stephen Pilcher, was the new owner of this place. And he was the one who was helping get this all organized. And we decided to do a concert. And that's when I realized that this area was where the original Philo Records, historic Vermont recording label, Philo, was right there. And so I was thinking about that. And then we did the big fundraiser. Everybody came in, and I was interviewing people in the room. And the owner, the former founder and owner, Bill Schubart, and his half brother, Michael Coulter, they were talking. We're right in the house now. And they looked at each other and they said, "Do you hear it?" And they stopped and they looked at it and they were smiling. And I said, "What?" They said, the sound of the studio. It's still here. It's still in the walls.
Yeah, it's this beautiful arched ceiling kind of space. I don't imagine it was built for the purpose of a studio. It was probably somebody's house, right? That was repurposed into a studio.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories about that. I think was a lot more, and we'll have to get some of those people, to tell that story. Bill Schubart talked about, that they were kind of refurbishing as needed, different rooms for different things. But the room that we were in was the original, place where things were recorded.
Now,
And
the heyday of that would have been the 60s and 70s, 70s,
the 70s
80s?
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And everybody recorded there. I mean, in the folk world, there were so many people who did recordings on Philo. It was a big label.
Right.
And and so I was thinking about that after I heard that. I had been carrying around a lot of songs that I had written, and they were different than the songs that I had written before. There was something different, and the reason was because I was going down to Nashville, and I was interacting with a lot of Nashville musicians. George Hamilton the fifth, who was the son of George Hamilton the fourth, who was really essential in country music, had a little live stream called Viva Nash Vegas, that I went down there and I did his live stream. And then I started meeting other people, and then I started interviewing people at the Grand Ole Opry backstage, and it was very interesting. Marty Stewart, all of these wonderful people, I started talking with them, and I could see that some of that influence was rubbing off on me, and my songs were changing a bit. And I felt like, well, this is a different kind of sound. And I was calling it country roots because it was the roots, the roots of folk. It was the roots of blues. It's the roots of this and this and that. So that's my word for what I'm doing, is country roots, because there's folk in there for sure, because that's a big part of who I am. But it also...
Right. How many years have you been a folk singer?
Over 50.
And how many albums of folk songs have you been involved in over the years? Can you add them up in your head?
Well, I had to not long ago, and I think it's about 16 different projects that I've been involved with. And some with just a song on it. Like when we did the tribute to Utah Phillips, I had a song on that, and that became a Grammy. It was nominated for a Grammy of the Year in 2000, And that was another thing that kind of changed everything, Phil, because up to that point, I didn't even think we had a voice, as far as folk music. I didn't really think about recordings in the big picture, in the big music world. I was just thinking about, the idea that we play music because we love music.
Mm-hmm.
That's the essence of who we are, is we're playing music because we love it. It's not about the thinking about being a star or doing this or doing that. It's because, first of all, I think for myself, I felt a need to carry this on. I was not aware, because I was pretty green, because I started out when I was like, 15 years old when I got fired. You get this, and when you're 15 years old, you take on these big challenges. I said, well, I'm gonna help save this music. I'm gonna help, get more people to listen to it. And that was really it. I mean, I really felt like I was on this crusade to get more people to like the music. And I'd go all to my rock and roll friends and, and show them, here, listen to Elizabeth Cotton playing Freight Train.
Right. Isn't that amazing? And it's the both the arrogance and the beauty of being a young person is that you absolutely feel like you're going to set the world on fire. So your time in Nashville kind of inspired you to go in this little bit of a different direction with some of these songs and make. And when you approached me, you said, "I got a country record."
Well,
sort of.
I don't want to say, like this is a, absolute country. It's an influence. There's an influence of country music,
Yeah.
and it goes back even further. When my father's mother, Kay, when we used to visit her, she was a big country fan, and she had her hi-fi, and she would play Hank Williams, and she would play Johnny Cash, and she would play all of these, and she would dance around the room. And so I was listening to country music at an early age, and I love the story songs, Wolverton Mountain, and I think that's where I first heard the Battle of New Orleans. I didn't know it was.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know it was Jimmy Driftwood. It was Johnny Horton, And so I grew up with this idea, and there was a movie about Your Cheating Heart about Hank Williams that I saw when I was young. And that was very pivotal in really making me like music, and especially Hank Williams music. And so then when I started to go to Nashville, the first time I went to the Grand Ole Opry, I was doing school tours, and I just, on a whim, just drove down to Nashville and went to the Grand Ole Opry. And then I saw people like Grandpa Jones, playing, and Hank Snow. And at that time, those early, everybody was alive, Minnie Pearl. And I saw the Grand Ole Opry, and I said, what is this? And I saw the roots of folk music in country. I felt that it was all connected. And then later on, when I started going down there and interviewing people, I really felt the connection with Uncle Dave Macon and String Bean and all of those things. But I met this guy who was the head of the Grand Ole Opry fan club, who was schooling me, I mean schooling me, in country music. I would stay at his house. He was doing this thing called Country 101. And the whole house was filled with all memorabilia from the Grand Ole Opry. He even had a bench from the Opry that I used to sleep in that room with a bench when I used to stay down there. And, he knew that I knew a lot about folk music, but he didn't think I knew enough about country. So he would sit there and he would play all of these old videos from the early days of the Grand Ole Opry. And he said, well, now who's that guy? And who's that guy? And you should know about this person. And so Glenn Thompson was really a very important person, Glenn and Louise. And they ran this Country 101, where they brought in people from the Grand Ole Opry to do an informal concert in their living room. And that's where I met so many people, in the living room,
Mm-hmm.
And it really started reminding me of the humble roots of this music. And then I got to meet a lot of other people like Manuel, the great fashion designer and stuff. And he taught me too. He said, the reason that people dressed up when you perform this music was because you're playing for a hardworking audience. You're playing for farmers. You're playing for factory workers, and you have to give them something to fantasize about, to
Oh, interesting.
get them out of their everyday life and to look forward to something. Now, some of the guys didn't necessarily want to wear all those clothes, but
Well, it's interesting because you see musicians who, try to appeal to working class people by wearing baseball cap and T-shirts and jeans with holes in them, with the idea that, hey, I'm just like you, but that other attitude is, hey, it's this thing to aspire to,
yes. And when I first met Manuel, and I said, well, what about me? And he looked me over, and I had a T-shirt on, the festival T-shirt, which was the uniform, for all of us
Right.
folkies. Whatever the last festival you played at, you have your T-shirt on. And he said, it's okay. Is that who you are? He said, you can tell the clown by the nose. And it was
That's a
like,
great line.
and he said, if you're going to stand up there for 2 hours, what are you telling people?
Right,
What are you
right.
telling people? And so
Love it.
it was a really kind of bizarre way, So after I met Manuel and stuff, I went out west and I was playing out in Arizona, and there was this place. It was called a country western kind of fair, and they had cowboys and all kinds of stuff. And they had this booth where they had some of these Manuel jackets and stuff like that, And so I put one on. This woman said, "You look really good in that, you should think about that. That really fits you well." And it was like really expensive. And I'm going, well, no, I was just with Manuel just, about a week and a half ago, and I know that these clothes are too expensive. And she said, "You were not with Manuel." And I said, "Yes, I was." She said, "You proved to me that you were there with him. I've never met him," she said. "I'll give you this jacket for less than half the price." So being who I am, I got home. I had a video at that time, it was a VCR. I sent it in, and she was blown away because she had something to show all of her shopkeepers of his shop and everything. She sent me the jacket for less than wholesale. And that's how I got the first jacket thing. And the cool thing was when I put it on, it was immediate. Phil, it was immediate. And Mariana was shocked. She said, "People are looking at you, Rik, in a different way." And it was like, okay, they're waiting for something, Okay, now can you deliver? They weren't just ignoring you. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
They're giving you the chance, like, hey, this guy's serious. And so that's why that I got involved. And then my great grandfather was an embroidery designer. So the embroidery runs really deep in my family. And so that's why, later on, the vest that I usually wear has this big rose on it. That's actually my great grandfather's design.
That's so cool.
So it's all part of what I've been doing. And so
goodness, and it really sounds that it oh my gosh, my thing just went away. Can you still hear me? Oh my gosh, my screen just left me. There it is. It's back. So I because people are popping on and off of this broadcast. So I just want to reintroduce you and me. I'm Phil Henry. I'm chatting with Rik Palieri, and we're talking about this new album that Rik is just preparing to put out in the world. And I put in the comments section a link to the Kickstarter campaign. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but we were at the point in the story where we were finding out that you were really looking to put together something that had some roots and country basis to it. And which, as a folk singer, you hadn't really been able to put on record, and you had this bag full of songs that you'd collected of your own songs, your original music over the years, and you also had this vision that there was this house that was formerly the Philo recording studio. And what town is that in? Ferrisburg, Vermont, which had not just a history, but an undeniable vibe. And so at that point, you reached out to me and said, hey, I would like to record this with you and to see if we could imbue some of that, the energy from the studio, but also to bring in some of the instrumentation that would make this kind of fit that vision, that vibe that you had in your head and in your heart about these songs. So that's when the two of us reached out. Well, you reached out to the current owner. So the studio is now somebody's house.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Well, the thing is, once I got this idea in my head, I called up the owner of the house. And like I said, it really was the place where the studio of Philo Records was. And I talked to Stephen Pilcher and I said, Stephen, is there any way that we can move your furniture around a bit and bring Phil Henry's Porta studio in and do some recording? And he was intrigued. And he said, sure. And so it was it was right before winter. Remember that we were worried a little bit about, we had to fit this in before, we're living in Vermont, folks. So the weather is an issue about these kind of things.
Right. And the wood stove would be roaring if we did it much later into the winter.
So, we were able to get in there, and immediately, as soon as we set up and we recorded the first song, which was Wolf Song, was the first one that we did. I brought a bunch of my guitars and my banjo in there. And I knew soon as I heard it that there was something special about this place. I don't know. Were you feeling it too, Phil?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the environment of a studio, you behind me, you're seeing my studio, which is not, I don't know if this has the same vibe as a Philo Records. It's a room in my house, but there's energy in that, but there certainly was energy in this beautiful vaulted ceiling room that was the live room, tracking room for Philo Studios. It was good energy.
You set up the mics too, the way that they were supposed to be set up, as because of the high ceilings. You had mics way up in the balcony.
Yes, which did end up in the recording. You can't have too much of it, and then it overpowers the the room overpowers the voice. But I think we did about 7 songs in that space, all in one day, which is absolutely a feat for somebody, any musician to do, is just kind of knock out 7 songs and be prepared and deliver them, which you did beautifully.
Well, it was, once again, there were some of the songs that we were doing. I knew this was the first time that they were being recorded, and I knew that they were going to change as we went through this process. Because I said, well, I've never recorded before, but let's get it down and see what we can do. And there's a few tracks that you have put together here that we can talk about. And one of them that I thought that was really, when we started out with the Living in the Truck Stop. Now that particular song was, was one of those kind of crazy things where I was living in a truck stop, folks. There's no doubt about it. In my camper van, that's what I would do. I would be parked in with all the truckers, and that was my life when I was on the road. I didn't like to stay in hotels. I still don't, unless I have to. And I would stay in my camper van, and my camper, the truck camper, and before earlier days was with my van. But you can hear this song. So I'm writing this song pulling out of the truck stop. It was down in Louisiana that I was parked. And I was just having fun, and I was beating out the rhythm on my steering wheel. And just fooling around with the words and thinking about silly country songs. And this whole thing about heart going flip-flop, I go, that's really silly.
Well, hey, let's listen to a few seconds of this little preview of the album. These are the basic tracks recorded at Philo, what was the Philo Studios, and then we invited a number of musicians to help dress it up a little bit. So here's a little bit of that.
Back home, when I'm driving down the road, she's always on my mind. When I hold her in my arms, I'm so glad she's mine.
Little Elvis,
Stop heart going flip flop, thinking about my baby back home, thinking about my baby back home. I'm living in a truck stop, listen to the raindrop, didn't sleep all night long. Now I'm hopping on my 10-bagger, and then honey, I'm a coming home. 'Cause I got my own little honey bee. I love her, she loved me. I'm living in a truck stop, heart going flip-flop, thinking about my baby back home. I'm thinking about my baby back home. When I'm driving down the road.
All right, we'll bring that down here.
Well, Phil, what was really cool is that, like I brought this to you, and then we're talking about it, and there was like this old kind of truck stop feeling that I really wanted in there, and like somehow we were able to get this Beach Boys thing in the bridge, and well, it was what it was remember when John Lennon recorded that Starting Over.
Mm-hmm.
And he had that well thing in that little thing. So that little phrase was like in my head, with the starting over thing. And then like you kind of took it where, because both you and I are big Beatles fans. Sure. And that was one of the reasons that I really wanted to work with you, Phil, is because of your musical vocabulary and your reference points and the way that you are able to create this kind of feeling. So when we started working on this song, and I saw how you brought this kind of neat kind of feeling in it, where it was like a little bit Beach Boys, a little bit Beatlesque kind of feeling, I thought it was really cool. And I was sending it out, I have a whole bunch of friends that are, that test people, just to get an idea, like, all right, what do you think of this, And they were like, man, you could dance to that. And like, that's the first time in my life
that you've been a dance band.
I've been just like, wow, you could dance to it, And they were like, they said we were dancing around the room, And so it really evolved into something much bigger. Here it is, this album, this song that I never recorded before, and it becomes the first song on the project.
Yeah, and it's my favorite of the tunes. I gotta say, it really spoke to me right from the get go. So speaking of the way that we recorded this, including Philo, and then adding things, I prepared a small surprise for you. I have the day that we did the recording, I set up a couple of cameras, and so I have some footage of us in the actual old Philo studio space, now Steve's house, where we recorded. And you'll see kind of almost dead center, right where somebody actually would have been recording at Philo Records back in the day, is Rik with some mics. People who are savvy with recording technology know that there's lots of different ways that you can record, and a lot of times things are recorded in layers where you start with a drum set, and then you add a guitar track, and then you add a bass track, and then over on top of that you record the vocal. But it's important to know that that most of what you heard, actually everything that you heard, was recorded kind of in a straight take. You start at the song and you sing the entire song. You might do it again, but then after that, then it goes to the producer to dress it up a little bit. So what you're going to see is a recording of the title track from the record, "Hands of Time." And you'll see us, in the space. You'll see, and what you're going to hear at first is just the camera's microphones picking up you doing your thing. And about halfway through the video, it's going to switch over, and you'll hear all the things that we added to it, and the reverb on the voice, and the pedal steel in the piano, and the upright bass, and and how we took it from that original track to something quite a bit bigger. So
let's watch.
Here it is. All right, pretty good take.
Sorry about the cat.
Oh, I didn't hear Steve.
There was a cat in there?
For the cat sounds.
I can do it again.
It's
We're
a
gonna do it
beautiful
again.
song.
What?
It's a beautiful song.
That's what I think that's what it's all about. Is this idea of one more chance. You have one more chance.
I think it's awesome.
Okay, give me a moment. Do that.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If I could turn back the hands of time, back before our love started dying, if we could forget all the people we've met, if all our regrets didn't happen quite yet, then I could love you again. If I could turn back the hands of time, if I could stop the tears you are crying, if the papers we signed weren't written in stone, if I hadn't left you to live on your own, then you could love me again. But our time has passed, and we both have moved on, and our only hope is written in this song. So if you're still listening and your tears are all gone, perhaps our love can still carry on. If I could turn back the hands of time, back before our love
started dying. If we could forget all the people we've met, if all our regrets didn't happen quite yet, then I could love you and you could love me. Yes, I could love you again.
That was fun to watch that, Phil. Now, for the folks that are watching and tuning in, it was nice to hear Barry and Al Poindexter. Great show, thanks. It's that particular song came out of a kind of a real life experience and part of a dream with me. And I because my first relationship, with my wife, first wife, Claudia, when it ended, that's always that kind of a thing where you try to make it right. You say, okay, I'm going to try one more time. I'm going to try one more time. So I was thinking about that. And I was also, it just didn't work when I first wrote it. I said, nah, there's nothing here. And then I got this idea of, that love dedication, that the old time, like in the American graffiti, the idea, like you could go to the DJ, you could go to the DJ was the saint. The DJ could fix everything because they had the magic to be out on the radio and speak, and that girl would hear the song that you wrote, and so that was the whole idea.
Well, and we really played that up, and I kind of held off on sharing that part of it, but the record has a real sense of storytelling where we're going to put you in a certain place and time, and going along with that dedication, we actually had almost an actual radio dedication. So we really put you on the road, driving along in a staticky radio, and we had a good friend, Ron Olesko, help us out as the radio DJ. But you may have to wait for
you'll have to wait to hear that. But it was funny when I asked Ron to do it. It was like, well, he said, I never did anything like this before, Rick. Yeah. and it was just kind of a fun thing. I said, well, and I started explaining that the whole concept. And I think this is, I believe, Phil, what we created is a concept album. This is all about a story. This is a storytelling album. There's lots of different stories in there, and it takes you on a journey. And sometimes you're going to be, with these different people. And as I was saying early on, that these songs are real songs, meaning that they're not fabricated. They come from real experiences, real people. And another song that we're going to highlight in a bit. I don't know if you want to talk about that one yet, or The Hands of Time. This came from I'm not going to name the person, but a cowboy that I met out west, and who went through a bad relationship kind of thing. And
I'm living in a truck.
Oops, sorry. I was
and
trying to click around.
And at the point where I visited.
This is
him,
Camp Broken Heart. Is
right?
That correct?
Yeah, I visited with him in a trailer camp where there was all these other guys. There were just guys. There was no women there. There was all these other guys, and they all had lost their families, from bad relationships, from drinking, from all kinds of things. And when you went there, you got this feeling of despair. Everything looked like it was falling apart. Everything looked like it was really bad. And many times, I was in different houses and stuff like that, or trailers, and they'd open up the refrigerator and there'd be nothing there except beer. And like, it really, right after I visited that camp, that trailer camp, I had the words and I wrote it down. I had to pull over and I had to write it down. And I knew that this was really told a real story. And luckily it has a happy ending to it. But it was a very intense kind of thing. And I wanted Phil to be able to capture something in the bridge part where it starts out in this kind of a slow kind of thing, but I wanted this kind of bridge thing to have this feeling of lifting, and it took a while. What did you think when I was talking about that idea?
Every song needs to have kind of a tell its own story, and at a certain point, there is the climax, there is the bit of tension, the action. So we figured it out, largely through a combination of kind of intensifying the piano, which. Gosh, I don't play a whole lot of piano, but I did play some piano on that one, but also through some vocals. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the cool way that you used a tambourine.
Oh, cool. Yes. In this one, in fact, it ended up being a sample of a tambourine that we used elsewhere in the record. You have this cool Italian huge, skinned tambourine, which we kind of gave it like that old Simon and Garfunkel, the boxer sound, where it's like you hit it and it just.
Yeah.
So you'll hear a bit of that as well to kind of amp the whole thing up. But as well, and this thing has got a kind of a country sound that comes from the upright bass of Mitch Barron, and the pedal steel of my secret weapon, an amazing musician who's named Kevin Mall. So you want to listen to a bit of this?
Yeah, just a tiny bit.
You don't want to give it all away?
No, we can't give it all away, folks. I mean, you're only going to get a little bit of taste. There's a reason for that.
All right, here's Camp Broken Heart.
Broken down trailer, junk in the yard, dusty old saddle, and a worn deck of cards. My old Martin just hangs on the wall. No, I haven't done much since I took that last fall. Back when my world blew apart and I moved into Camp Broken Heart. A stack of cracked photos that once were my life. The old house, the new truck, my kids and my wife. We were flying high as a kite, and I never thought I would give up that life. Till my world blew apart and I moved into Camp Broken Heart. I still see her now, we're lost in a dream, riding together in that white limousine. She said forever when she wore my ring, but now those vows don't mean anything. Since my world blew apart and I moved.
All right.
Well, Phil, I'm sitting there and I am almost back in that trail. And there he is, and he has this big stack of photos. This guy is trying to tell me about his life. And all he has left is this big stack of photos. And you could see that they were so worn because he had looked at them so many times that they were all bent and they had all kinds of cracks in it. And you looked around the room and that's what you saw. You saw, the saddle. And it was just covered in dust. And everything that is in that is things that I saw and experienced. And we're not going to give you the happy ending. You're going to have to, you'll have to wait for that. But it does have a happy ending, and the guy is happy now. Okay?
All right. Well, really good. With we have not that there's any time limit on a Facebook Live or a YouTube Live, but I definitely want to make sure that we talk a little bit about your Kickstarter because, as you know, and we'll throw up there's a Barry's got a comment there.
Great.
Thanks for tuning in. So many of us know that this is a very strange time to be in the music business, and we've always had the idea that okay, well, we're going to put out a CD and we'll be able to sell it at shows and it'll be kind of our calling card and so on. But this business has changed a lot, and we're at a time where musicians are expected to put out content all the time, and it's somehow expected to be free. and out on all the platforms for everyone to enjoy, but making music is not free. So let's talk about the Kickstarter and what you think you need a chunk of money for, and what people can get for pledging on the Kickstarter.
Well, Phil, you're absolutely correct. I mean, and that's one of the frustrations, folks, today's music makers, is that we are in a bind because we have to produce, we have to create. It's in our hearts. That's without saying that we have to do this. But the second part of it is we have to give it to you, and we have to give it to you in the way that you can receive it. Right now, it's platforms and it's streaming, but in order to get radio airplay, we have to make CDs. It's really funky because, here we are in the streaming world, we're doing all this, but in radio airplay that we need for a wider audience, we have to make CDs.
Yeah, and to be fair, there's a ton of DJs who have become digital, and they'll take the music off of a folder that's sent to them. But there's a whole lot of DJs that still want that thing in their hand. They want to be able to open it up and read the liner notes and say, "Oh, look who played on this song," and so they're able to talk about it. And having that physical product is a piece of that.
And it's also the idea of like you work so hard to create this, and then you have nothing but a stream to show for it. You know what I mean? It's like, wait a minute, I just spent all this money and you don't even get anything that I want the people that enjoy my music to have something to hold and to remember and put it on your shelf. And you know that it's going to be there. It's not going to fade away just because the platform fades away. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That there's something solid in that. I mean, of course, I'm married to a bookbinder, whose family's been binding books since 1800.
You're in another century.
And so we're used to things that last. And so I want something that will last. And that's why, Don Fleming says, writing the liner notes. And I just told Phil that he's planning on writing about 1,000 words. I don't even know what he's going to say, but I said, whatever Don Fleming says, I'm going with it.
That's amazing. And Don Fleming's, for those of you who might not know him, from the Carolina Chocolate Drops and Grammy Award-winning performer. He's wonderful.
And he been nominated for his liner notes. I mean, this is, so, I mean, Dom is just, he's a wonderful friend, first of all. And also, it was somebody that I really wanted involved in this project because he, too, loves, this kind of old country roots music. He did the first Black Cowboy. I mean, way before Beyonce, Cowboy Carter. Dom Fleming is one who did Black Cowboys. And he is a historian and is a wonderful person. So I'm really honored to have Dom involved in this project. And the whole thing is, so in order to reach as many people as possible, and this is the other thing, is that people have been saying to me, Rik, the whole point of you making this recording is for people to hear your music. That's the goal. So that's why you need to have the radio. And I am going to take it an extra step that I am going to try, and I don't know if I'm going to succeed because I'm just a little folky kind of guy. But if we can actually get some airplay on country stations, here in Vermont or other places, that would be a big success, just to be able to make that connection. So that's one of my hopes. And we are also, if we reach our $5,000, so I have $5,000. It's actually a small amount to ask for this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to figure out what can I do in the smallest amount of money? How can I incorporate all of these goals? So with this money, it will enable me to do the things that I need to do, because we don't have to make as many CDs, because like we said before, is like once we make the CDs and people will buy them on the Kickstarter for sure, but will they buy them at the gigs? We don't know. People don't buy as many CDs. So it is a big risk. I mean, when you do a Kickstarter, and this is one of the things I wanted folks to understand, they don't understand how much work it is. Phil has done a number of Kickstarters, and he knows that this is not something, it's not a freebie kind of thing. You have to work your tail off to do all kinds of things to make this work. And we only have 30 days to do it. And now I've got a little bit less. I think I'm 28 days or whatever. That's all I've got. And it's all or nothing. It's like either you get it or you don't get anything. So that is a frustration, because you're working so hard and people don't understand. They think, oh, yeah, this is like a handout. It's not a handout, folks, because I have to put together all of these packages of rewards for your pledges. So we've got all kinds of cool stuff, a custom flat pick, and we have note cards that are based on my folky paintings, and we've got my book, and Mariana's making some special leather bookmarks, and then we've got the extra kind of cool stuff like getting your name on the CD cover, and as a thank you, and we do have one person already being an executive producer kind of thing, where they are really invested into the project. They believe in the project so much. And then at the very top, I'm actually doing some of my original folky paintings. So either it's I have one that I've done that is the Hands of Time kind of thing that I put together, but I'm also going to be creating special paintings, that at that top level. I'll hand draw them and frame them and all that kind of stuff. So those are the kind of things that realistic things, because you want to keep this all manageable.
And of course, and we were talking about how for those of us who don't necessarily listen to CDs, it's available as a digital download, which of course is going to include all of the liner notes and so on electronically, and that means that if you are halfway across the world and you want to be a part of this, I mean, Rik has fans as far away as Poland and
Australia.
Australia,
Yeah.
Since he traveled there just this past year, yes.
Do we have a link? Do we have a link for the Kickstarter in here?
Oh my gosh, I've been posting it every 10 seconds.
Good.
it's right in the comments.
We've learned our lesson from NPR.
In fact, I'll put it up here on the screen. Just there it is. But I have complete faith in your fans. You've touched a lot of people over the years, and it's very, very easy to contribute in smaller and larger ways in order to make sure that this is a success. I know that it's a great album. Sometimes you'll pledge a Kickstarter and they have not hit the studio yet. You know, it's like, oh, we need the upfront costs in order
Yeah.
to book studio time. And you know, we've been able to do this you know, at the Philo studio space and here and in your bass player Mitch's guest room,
And here
music
at the
room,
house.
and at your house. So you know, we've done these little remote sessions here and there. So we've been able to put it together, and we know that this record is here, and it's going to be great. It
And now
really
the
does
other
sound
thing,
wonderful.
the other thing is like we did a lot of these recordings, you know, at the Philos things. Then we had some things that I had recorded previously that never were released in a major way, and we redid them. So I was in Nashville a number of years ago. My friend Rob McNorland, uh, Rob McNorland, you know, it was a funny story because Rob goes, Rick, he goes, you want to do some recording? I said, sure. He goes, I got this little studio space and we can do some recording with Caton. Now, Caton Roberts was the steel pedal. He's really old-fashioned steel player for Hank Snow's Rainbow Boys. You know, Hank Snow. You know, this is the real deal. And so he sets it up and he goes, Rick, come on. You know, it's right outside of Nashville. He goes, you go down and there's a fence there and you have to put this, you know, numbers in and the fence, you know, open up the fence and you'll get in. So I'm thinking like, well, there's going to be a fence and it's going to be some like a combination lock, you know. I'm thinking of this kind of a situation. I get down there and there's this mansion and there's this gigantic gates with this press, you know, a button kind of thing. And I pressed the buttons in and the gates opened. And I'm like, oh my. And we were at the house of J.A. Jackson, one of the wonderful, he just passed away not too long ago. And Jay was letting Rob use his studio. And that's where we recorded. And Caton came down and, you know, we did a number of songs, and this particular song was the song I wrote for my dad. My father wanted this religious song. Now, I had never written a religious song in my life, you know, but my dad really, that's what he wanted. And I wasn't getting anywhere. He wanted it for Christmas. And then there was a story on TV about Johnny Cash and how Johnny Cash's brother had died in the sawmill accident. And the last words that he said was, "Mama, I hear the angels singing." And that was it. My mind just, I wrote the song right then. And so we recorded it, and his steel playing is fantastic on this. We recorded it once, and I said, Rob, you think we should do it again? Rob goes, well, it'll be different, but it won't be any better. And so we kind of kept it like that. And then, you know, I never really put it on any album, you know, and I brought it to Phil and I said, you know, I really like to do something with this. And Jen Larson was coming up to do the Great Vermont Barn Dance Show. And Jen Larson I had met because she used to be the head of the archives for the Grand Ole Opry.
Right.
And she also was a singer on
Beautiful vocalist.
Prairie Home Companion with Garrison Keillor. And she's just a wonderful singer. And so, you know, I said, you know, Jen, is there any way that you'd add to this song? And so we recorded her part right here in my living room and added it to that original track. And it just sounds great.
Which is quite a thing. We didn't have any of the original tracks. We just had one wave file that that came off of a CD that you burned years ago, and we had to do some of that Beatles remixing technology in order to make it all and that was a challenge that I had as a producer and an engineer, to take these things that we had recorded and as well as these things from different studios, including a wax cylinder recording, and make them all seem like they are part of one whole. And I think it really works well. Do you want to hear a little bit of
Yeah,
God's Golden Shore?
just a tiny bit. Just give them a teaser.
We got to hear at least through Jen's vocal, and then
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
we'll let it go. Here is God's Golden Shore, a really great gospel-y tune.
Will the angels all be singing? Will the trumpet calls be ringing? Will the pearly gates be swinging when you reach God's golden shore? Will all of your relations jump in joy and jubilation? Will you finally find salvation when you reach God's golden shore? When you reach God's golden shore, when you reach God's golden shore, will you live in paradise when you knock on heaven's door? When the Spirit flows right through you, will you shout out hallelujah? Will your soul live on forever when you reach God's golden shore?
All right.
Well, you know,
Fade it out there.
we talked about another kind of surprise. I mean, one of the cool things that Phil and I were able to do is put like a lot of surprises. There's a lot of surprise instruments in here. There's, you know, there's a surprise DJ in here. And as Phil said, another crazy idea of mine, it was Jen Larson who helped arrange this. I was down in Nashville, and she talked about Martin Fisher. And Martin Fisher was at the Museum of Popular Music, and that's in Mulesburg. I can't remember how to say it. Anywhere down in Tennessee, and he records cylinder record. I mean, we're talking. This is before 78s. This is the 1800s. You know, Thomas Edison cylinder recording with the gigantic horn and everything. And so I went down there and I recorded the old traditional song about going down the road feeling bad with my banjo, singing in to the cylinder recording. And I had the steamboat whistle that Jen also helped me get this replica of the original George D. Hay steamboat whistle. I started off blowing the steamboat whistle into the thing, and I kind of camped it up a bit to sound like an old time. And I said to Phil, you know, it's going to be kind of weird putting this on there because people are not going to understand. So one of the things that you were able to do was put a little sound that people knew that they were listening to something different in that segue, right?
That's right. And by the way, the photograph of you singing into that the big horn at the wax cylinder is right there on the Kickstarter. So you know, click over that and check it out and see, and you're absolutely going to hear the real thing on this record when it comes.
Another challenging thing was, now I had recorded the Westbound before, but I never recorded it with the poem that I had written. And this was taking it to a whole different level. I mean, so we recorded the song with Rebecca Padula and with Mitch Barron. And then there was this recitation that I wrote about the hobo campfire. And the idea was almost like a Peter and the Wolf thing for adults. Was all of these different sound effects to enable people to, once again, this is all about a journey. This album is about traveling. And when you suggested that we have Mitch do these kind of bow-like sounds, I didn't get it at first. But when you hear the final thing, it really is very interesting.
Well, it's really this ghost story that is included in this case right in the center of the song. So it's like everything else on this record, we're building this kind of a soundscape. We want to put you right in the middle of things. that's I think that's a very very different thing than most albums you're gonna hear this
Well, I
year.
think well, there were all kinds of cool things. I mean, when we did the No Place to Rest Your Head, I said to Phil, why not a steel drum? Why?
And I love being able to go. Yeah, I know a steel drum player. There's this very, very talented educator and steel drum teacher player right here in Rutland, whose name is Jen Cohen, and so it was so amazing that she could just stop by my house with her pan and really do an amazing job.
And it was really kind of cool. And why, I wrote the song once again when I was out on the road around, a lot of homeless people as I traveled throughout out America, and I met this one guy, he was just at a McDonald's. He was just walking. He was basic, you could tell he was really in a bad shape, and he knocked on my window, and he had this little cup, and and as soon as I saw him, I looked him in the eye and I said, "Hey man, how's it going?" And he just lit up and he started talking to me about his life. And so I kind of used those ideas of what he said to create this. And I didn't want it to be another homeless, sad kind of thing. I wanted it to have this. I mean, there is no hope without dignity, right? There is no hope without dignity. And so on the real situation, after I talked to that guy, I said, "Hey, are you hungry?" I said, "Let's go in." And I went and I brought him into McDonald's and I bought him a whole meal and we sat down together. And it was interesting because he stood up straight. He walked through that door and he sat down and he ate with me. We ate together. And when he said goodbye, he walked a little taller. He had a smile on his face. And I wanted it to be that kind of a feeling like, wait a minute, this kind of sounds happy. Well, maybe his life was happy before he was homeless. Maybe he had a happy story, but times fell in a bad direction and he lost everything. And that I didn't realize that after I wrote it, that there were some biblical references that were involved in it. I mean, it was not something I looked up or anything like that. But later on, I realized so this is a kind of universal story about the lion has his own den. The birds live in the trees. The fish swim free in their own sea. But there's no place that's left for me. And that you were able to take those words and emphasize the power, because we slowed it down to nothing. So you just heard that part of it. And so I felt like that we captured that feeling in that particular song. So
Yeah, well, that's my job as a producer to make sure that the communication of that song is the most effective.
yeah.
And one of the most powerful things we have is dynamics, being able to be big and raise things up, and then when things are really important, sometimes to get very very close and very very intimate and very very purposeful. So
Yeah. Phil, what did you learn the most about working in this project?
boy, what did I learn? I don't know. Something that is something that I have worked really hard over the years is to try to say less as me the person and let the songs do more of the talking. You had these songs, and my job was not to get in the way of the songs. My job was to elevate them in the best possible way. So I certainly learned that, and it was such a joy to work with you on these songs and kind of get in a little piece of your world Because I've got my own world as a writer and what I do, but to hear some different points of view is amazing.
Well, the last song, we'll just talk about the last song because we went on a little bit long. And I hope you folks have been enjoying it. I'm used to doing interviews, so it's just a free kind of flow thing.
Totally. Well,
And
people will pop on and people will pop off. And the other, thing is that this will be up for a few days. So, you can watch it at your leisure. I mean,
right,
we're
share
right in
it
the
with your
middle of
friend.
somebody's workday.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we're going to get people fired. What are they watching this again? But the last song on here on the album, once again, was a song that I originally wrote in Nashville. And I was staying with an old high school friend who was in this high school band that I used to carry equipment for. And his son was learning how to play fiddle at the time. He's actually now a really good fiddle player. But I went and I interviewed those guys for my TV show, like I usually do. I try to always look out, like how can I facilitate and make other people's lives brighter, And I didn't know at that time that the idea of it being connected with the Library of Congress was not. That it was way before that. So I was just going around and talking with people and making sure the music was heard, because that was the whole reason I started doing the Songwriter's Notebook TV show, was let's
Right.
have our voices heard. And so Bruce did the show, and then the next morning I had to get off and do my tour. So I was camped out in my truck camper in his driveway. And early in the morning, I was heading out. I had left a thank you note, but I was, when you're on the road, folks, and I don't think that people understand that you need to leave. You have to go to the
They might know
place.
that.
You might have to go. I mean, sometimes they're praying that you leave, but other times, and so Bruce Miller, he was really kind, and I stayed there, but I knew I had to get to my next show.
Mm-hmm.
And Forrest, his son, got up early in the morning and saw me leaving. And he was little at the time, and he had like a blanket kind of thing, and he had little tears in his eyes. And I drove away, and I said, everybody cries when the circus leaves town.
Hmm.
And I thought about all the times that we performers, we come into people's lives and we change their lives for just that little. Sometimes people really need it. They really need music in their lives. It changes their life. For us, we're just living our life. We go here, we go there. But when we come into their world for that particular moment, the magic happens. And when we leave, the magic is gone. And for someone, some people, you could see the sadness. I mean, my friend Wiesza over in Poland, I was in Poland last year, and she said, they call me Ricky over there. They said, Ricky is leaving. She said, and she first said, it's raining outside. She said, Ricky is leaving and the mountains are crying. That's the kind of effect that sometimes we have, when we come in, we bring this energy and everything into it. And so I wrote that song, Everyone Cries When the Circus Leaves Town, about that idea. And then we kind of experimented a little bit. And just for fun, I said, it's really not about a circus. It's really about the performer's life. But there is the circus atmosphere. And if you've ever been with Ramblin' Jack Elliott, you know what I'm talking about. Because he just turns every place into a wild circus. And by the time that he leaves, it's like everybody's...
Well, Rik, and you are a little bit of a ringleader yourself. Let's play a little bit of this. This is again was one of those challenges. It was a much older recording, and we wanted to live in the same universe as the rest of these. So you'll hear some really interesting layers built into this. We'll listen to some of it, but maybe not all of it. This
Right,
is
just a tiny bit.
this may be called Music Man, or it may be called Everybody Cries When the Circus Leaves Town. Here it is.
I'm just a music man, living gently on the land, and every night's a one-night stand. I hang my hat wherever I am, 'cause everyone cries when the circus leaves town. Clowns ain't funny when no one's around. Stars don't shine when the tents go down. Everyone cries when the circus leaves town. I was born with a wandering soul, gypsy blood from days of old.
All right, a little taste of things
teaser.
there.
Yeah, and that was a really, and I think ending the album at first I didn't really, I was thinking it was kind of a soft way to end the album, but it's the right way to end the album. It's the end of the journey, right? We took you on this long journey from the beginning. We went into truck stops. We went into the hobo jungle. We rode on some freight trains. We we went down, and sat with the homeless. We did all of these different things, and now we're saying goodbye, and that's the way that And right at the very end, there's a little bit of a surprise, because, like I said, Phil you got to listen to this thing, because there's all kinds of fun instruments, different ideas. It's what makes music live. It's not how many, as a radio person myself, doing a radio show, and with Jason Baker, and sometimes we would do a show and we get a box of CDs, and we would listen to them just cold, okay, and to put them on the air, giving people a chance, and some really sucked. They really sucked, and it was like, oh man, but we gave them a chance. And the whole thing is like, so what is good, or what you feel is good. I mean, everybody has their own interpretation of good. Now, I'm not saying that my voice is that great or anything like that, but I'm being honest with you folks. I'm trying to give you the best that I can do at this particular time of my life.
I think there's some brilliance in that. In this age of things being created by artificial intelligence and studio tricks and everything else, what's going to define what makes human connection largely is going to be authenticity. You're telling your stories, whether or not they happen to you or somebody else. These are your stories. This is your voice. This is your guitar, and your banjo. And we're presenting it in the most authentic way, and I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, and I'd also like to thank, on the Kickstarter I used a lot of different photos. Lynn Collier, did a wonderful. Claire, my mind is blank. Sorry, Lynn, I can't remember exactly how to say your last name. Clauer. Did fantastic photos of the boxcar of Utah's Flanger car, and I'm really grateful for all the people that have enabled me to grow as an artist, and supported all the different work that I've done, and you, Phil, for coming into my life at this particular time and make this vision that I've had for a long time actually come to life.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for asking and trusting me with your music. It means a lot.
So you folks out there, there is time. There's a lot, as NPR would say, we still got time.
So I think maybe what I will do, yeah, and in just about 24 hours, we've had I think close to $700 contributed toward the Kickstarter. There's plenty of time, but we will. I'm sure Rik would appreciate if you don't wait too long. You don't pay until after August 16th, which is Rik's birthday, and the end of the Kickstarter campaign. That's when, if it is funded, if then
remember, folks, it's all or nothing. That's
So-
that's the thing. Is like, if people don't pledge the money, then they ain't gonna be the album. And then I'll be well, whatever. I mean, it's risky. It's a risky kind of thing to have your dreams set onto this thing. But we are gamblers. We folk musicians.
yeah, we are.
We are gamblers, and we are willing to take the risk. And
Well, isn't that the artist's journey? I mean, you have to be as authentic as you can, put something out into the world, and hope that it connects with somebody else. And,
That's right.
We're kind of pushing that connection when we ask for a little help in making that happen.
And Phil, what I think we should do is when we get near the end of this thing, is do this again.
That sounds great.
Shorter. We don't have to do it as long. I mean, we almost talked for an hour and a half here.
I love it.
But I'm hoping that you folks who are listening and watching will share this with your friends who are interested in music. There's a lot in this particular thing. There's also a lot in this thing about teaching you about how hard the Kickstarter is. And if you've never tried it as a musician, it's a learning experience.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think we're going to say goodbye, but you know what? Since we played it very early on, I'm gonna leave us with that video of Hands of Time, which shows us recording this at the old Philo recording studio, and it starts off with just the camera audio, and then as we transition to the second verse, all of a sudden we now hear the pedal steel and of Kevin Mall, and we hear the upright bass of Mitch Barron and the piano of Jeff Kimball. All enriching how the song ended up, and I'll leave there in the comments. You should be able to see the link to the Kickstarter, and I hope that you will check it out. And let's talk again in August.
Let's do that.
And otherwise, oh yes, and Gary, you're the one who introduced me to Kevin all those years ago when we were working on your album, and we invited Kevin to play some dobro. He's an amazing musician. So we'll hear a little bit of that. And thank you so much, Rik, and we'll chat soon.
Okay, everybody have a great day.
All right, here it comes. Let's see. We'll put it back to the beginning, and here we go. All right, pretty good take.
Sorry about the cat.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
There was a cat in there?
Glanced over that way.
I could do it again.
It's
We're
a
gonna do it
beautiful
again.
song.
Right.
What?
It's a beautiful song.
That's what I think that's what it's all about, is this idea of one more chance. You have one more chance.
I think it's awesome.
Okay, give me a moment. Do that.
One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. If I could turn back the hands of time,
could forget all the people we've met, if all our regrets didn't happen quite yet, then I could love you again. If I could turn back the hands of time, if I could stop the tears you are crying, if the papers we sign weren't written in stone, if I hadn't left you to live on your own, then you could love me again. But our time has passed and we both have moved on, and our only hope is written in this song. So if you're still listening and your tears are all gone, perhaps our love can still carry on. If I could turn back the hands of time, back before our love started dying, if we could forget all the people we've met, if all our regrets didn't happen quite yet, then I could love you and you could love me. Yes, I could love you